Good day, podcast community. Let me move this off. I didn't want to put that up too soon. So, we are on the podcast with our social media specialist, strategist, amplifier. So, Krista, welcome back.
Hello.
Krista is a mother, a wife, a business owner, and a busy person. So we leverage time in what we do. So Christopher, the people that don't know you yet or don't haven't heard you on a previous podcast, would you tell us who you are, what you do, and who you serve, and then we'll get into our podcast.
Absolutely. Yeah. So my name is Krista O'Neill. A lot of people might know me, and my former maiden name is Krista Cutcliffe because I am born and raised in East Cobb, Georgia. So lots of deep roots here in the Georgia community. But what I do is help businesses use social media to make money ultimately. A
Mhm.
lot of businesses know they need social media, but they don't know how to do it effectively. And so they end up spinning their wheels and wasting time or money. And my motto is if it's not making you money, it's wasting you money because your time is money. So my goal is to help businesses save time, not waste money, and make money using the power of social media.
That is awesome. I want to put this slide up here, which I had up here, but I want you to kind of talk about because I got started in social media 10 years ago, and I heard somebody say this that it's just in its early stages. And I'm going like, wait a minute, I started 10 years ago. And this is what he really meant. People buy from people. Social media is emotionally connecting with people. And so, for those businesses out there that are not really making that shift yet, could you speak to the fact of how social media is evolving and the importance of people being out there in the social amplification, space online?
Yeah, certainly. It is wild to have been at the precipice of social media. It's funny you say we're still in the beginning stages. I completely agree. Like we absolutely are. I'm a millennial, so I was in college very early in college when Instagram came out, and I remember being on it and thinking, oh, I can use this hashtag and my picture will come up if I use this specific hashtag, and how small of a community Instagram felt at that point. And now fast forward, gosh, 10, 15 years, and it's huge. It's global. There's millions of users and it feels overwhelming. But the cool thing is it's still in the infancy for business owners. People are just now over the last, let's say 5 or so years, realizing the power of social media for a business perspective. And I think influencers is really what changed the game for a lot of people, right?
Mhm.
We know of Kim Kardashian and how she makes millions of dollars using brand deals. But that bridge, when influencers started to make money by leveraging their influence on social media, is really what gave business owners the understanding of the power of what this could do for their business. And so you don't need millions of followers like Kim Kardashian to make money using social media. You just need to connect with the right people through social media. And that's really where strategic word of mouth comes into play. You have the power through social media to pick which room you want to be in, which communities you want to talk to, who you want to speak with. And it is just like word of mouth. It's the largest word of mouth network in the world is
Mhm.
social media. And so if you're not leveraging that, it's kind of like the old school days. If you didn't have a website, you're missing out on opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear people will talk about word of mouth, and I talk to people every day, and I'll say like, what has been effective for you? And they'll say word of mouth. And what I think I want you to clarify is old word of mouth and strategic word of mouth
Yeah.
amplifying social media. Could you kind of separate those two and give our viewers a better idea of what they just don't want to say word of mouth
Right.
because it's gone beyond that?
Right. Yeah. No, the in person word of mouth, unless the person who is speaking is on a stage in front of hundreds, thousands of people, is normally one to one, right? It's, hey, my neighbor needs a tree guy. I know a tree guy, and I spread that business using my word of mouth. The difference between that and social media is social media has the power to be one to many. So let's say, same example, my neighbor needs a tree guy, but she goes on a Facebook group for local moms and says, hey, I need a tree guy. Well, the responses in that group are now one to many, because it's not just to her, it's all of the eyeballs of people who are also looking for tree guys in that group. So it's a one to many platform, but it's still strategic, it's still word of mouth. So it amplifies 10x, 20x, sometimes 100x the power of that word of mouth and that recommendation.
Yeah, that's a good example. I love that story and that example, because I think some of our business owners are still thinking 5 years ago, 10
Yeah.
years ago. And if you're not intentional, like I love it. I don't know if we said it on another podcast, but we talked about strategically coming up with a plan. It's not like, oh, I'll post every so often myself. I'll put a little something out there. I'll do a little bit here. I'll try some here. Everything's strategy. So what do you when you're sitting down with owners and you're walking them through the strategy, what are they most afraid of, or where do you see the opportunity to help our viewers understand the opportunity that is out there?
Yeah, I think they're overwhelmed by social media. And I understand. It is overwhelming. If you think about it at large, you've got Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok, Pinterest, YouTube, and a business owner that doesn't know about any of these platforms, and that's just to name a few, right? Business owner looking from the outside in is like, gosh, I don't even know where to start. It's almost like, your room is a mess and hasn't been picked up for weeks, and now you're going in there saying, I just need to throw everything away, time to spring clean. Let's just toss it and start from scratch. You don't know where to start a lot of times. And so I think that's the biggest hesitancy that I come across in these meetings with businesses. And that's part of what I do, is helping them understand, okay, well, you know who your ideal demographic is. Okay, let's define that. And we talk through their ideal demographic. And then me knowing the different platforms and how they operate, I can help advise them as to where they should start, because it does not always have to be multi-channel. It could be just dipping your toe in the water and getting on Facebook, or,
Mm.
getting on LinkedIn. If you're B2B, maybe LinkedIn's a better option for you. But it's about having that industry knowledge of where you need to start. And absolutely they can learn that on their own. It's just, do they want to do the effort to understand these platforms individually, or do they want to fast track themselves and partner with an expert team?
Yeah, and you do see as business owners, we take on too much.
Mhm.
And we forget about the main thing, which is the revenue. And we get distracted with, well, I can do my own posting because it only takes me a minute, 2 minutes. But they don't realize that one, distractions are distractions. And if you get off and you start scrolling, all of a sudden you see something interesting. Next thing you know, you're an hour later and you go, what the heck did I just do? I lost an hour of my time,
Yeah.
not realizing how it's almost like TikTok and short form video. It's almost like it lures you in because it's only 30 seconds and then it's scroll another one and then another one. And the person that was sharing this, which I'd love for you to comment on, is he said, we have such a short attention span. And if you're just thinking that TikTok or short form videos is going to grow your business, yes, it can,
Mhm.
but they're scrolling one after another. They're not remembering you, but they can remember your story. So you want to get them over to your longer form content. Let's say it's a podcast and we're kind of singing the tune here, but they got to get to know your story. So how do you, when you're working with people and they're just wanting to do something because they heard one thing, oh, this TikTok's gonna it's gonna skyrocket my business. What do you try to do to help understand the long-term strategy with them?
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing is painting the picture of the long-term strategy because I mean, I can say this all day, but it goes across just social media and other industries. There's no such thing as an overnight success, right? It takes a lot of preparation, a lot of strategy to get to a point of success, right? And so most of the time, if we're exclusively talking about organic social media, I like to paint a picture of 6 to 9 months. It really is an investment in your business. Now, paid ads added to that can kind of change the game. You can see instant results with paid ads. It's almost like steroids versus consistency, right? But you have to build the car before you can drive it. What I mean by that is you do need a good organic posting schedule because the power of paid ads is it's getting it out to a lot more people. But if those people then click over to your primary page and they see that your feed looks messy or it doesn't match the paid ad that they saw, it actually has a negative impact. And I want to backtrack a little bit to something Pete said about strategy and building that. And yeah, you could, jump on there and post. It only takes 10 seconds, but I like analogies if you haven't noticed, but I'll use an analogy. If you're going to a networking group and you wake up late and you're 5 minutes behind schedule, you haven't taken a shower, you look a mess, but you don't have time to change. You've got to go in your pajamas. Are you going to go to that networking group? Probably not. And if you did, it would probably have a negative impact on your business. And
Mhm.
social media is the same way. If there's not a strategy, if there's not preparation, if you don't take a shower and get ready and prepare your social media so that it looks good and accurately represents you, it actually could have a negative impact on your business. So I actually tell businesses all the time, if you're not willing to invest the time and the energy into doing it right, don't do it at all. Because if people find you on Facebook and it looks messy, or if they find you on Instagram and it's nothing but advertising looking posts and it's not personal and it doesn't tell a story, it actually could negatively impact your business. And that's obviously the last thing that you want for your business. So it really does, kind of circling it back around, it really does require that strategy and thoughtful process. It's not just let me throw it together in 3 minutes and hope that it works.
Yeah, there's so much to that showing up with your pajamas and you're all mess because your first impression is a lasting one.
Yep.
And if a person all of a sudden sees you for the first time and you did some wild post and it didn't make any sense, that might have been the opportunity lost because they might say, that's not a serious business if they're doing that kind of stuff. What would you say when because we hear about digital assets and we're in a digital economy? What do you mean by creating digital assets?
Yeah. Digital asset is something that you can post on multiple channels or chop it up and change the format and post it in different places.
Mhm.
So an example of that, let's say you're sending out an email, which I love email marketing. I think there's so much beauty behind it. It's not free advertising, but you've already acquired that information, right? So let's say you send out an email and in that email you have a video or maybe a link to a post. That's a digital asset. So you're taking somebody from one platform to another. And when it comes to marketing, there's tons of different statistics that are thrown around, but 6 to 9 impressions is typically the window of opportunity for businesses. You need to be seen 6 to 9 times before you really build that trust with a customer in order for them, well, I should say a potential customer, in order to transition them into a paying customer. And so that one example takes them from an email impression to now a social media impression. And maybe your social media has stronger call to actions and links to your YouTube. So very quickly, you can see those impressions racking up and you're building that trust with your community. So a digital asset is more or less just anything that you can cross promote on different platforms.
Awesome. What would you say when we're talking about leveraging content? Because leverage is a great word, and we always want to leverage, whether it's our time, whether it's our content, our assets. What can you share with our viewers with thoughts on leveraging content?
Yeah, that's a great question. So leveraging content, again, you're saying it once, but you have the ability to impact multiple times. So again, going back to that business networking group, you stand up, you say it one time, you have, let's say 10, 20 people in the room, they hear it once. If somebody's recording that, you can take that recording, it's now a digital asset, and you can put it on social media and reach hundreds of people, thousands of people. So leveraging what you say one time saves you time and energy, and it's just a matter of being efficient, right? And making sure you don't have to repeat yourself over and over again, which we always do as business owners regardless, but leveraging that content that you've created to use on different channels is super powerful.
Yeah, that is really good. We're in that digital economy, creators economy, and I was at a BNI, and um, I it was 3 years ago. I had this gentleman on my podcast, and we had never met, but all of a sudden we're going like I recognized him. I go, oh my gosh, that's Brian, and it was, but I was only seeing him on the screen, but what he said to me afterwards, it was, and I wanted to bring up the leverage point. He said, let's get together for a one-on-one. Now, that's a typical BNI statement. And what we say now is, if we could leverage our time, let's do it on a podcast. We'll create a digital story. We'll still have our conversation, because I had a gentleman, he was 80 years old. He obviously missed, the main part of the digital revolution. And he kept saying, well, Pete, all you want to do is do a podcast. And he goes, I just want to meet with you. I said, we can do the same thing, create an asset, create a digital asset, and we leverage our time, because it's notorious if we have a meeting with somebody, it always lasts an hour, because you set aside an hour and you talk about all this stuff. Well, lo and behold, he was arguing with me. So the lady came on, and he didn't want to do a podcast, but we sat there for an hour back and forth. I hung up the phone, or the record, didn't record it, because he was kind of like, I don't want to do it. You're forcing me to do a podcast. And I said to the lady, I said, we just wasted an hour. I don't even know what we covered, but we went around and around and around. And that's a lot of times how we meet people, and we put a lot of stuff together. When you and I are talking here, this is an asset. Create it.
Yep.
It's out there. We're always going to be able, if somebody's not sure of something, they could see this and say, man, that Krista made a whole lot of sense when it came with strategic word of mouth. I love that. Let me schedule an appointment with her, and then we're not wasting our time. We've actually put it in a digital form. So I want to be respectful of your time. So I want to give our viewers, how can they get a hold of, if you're out there and you're like, man, I don't know, I don't understand this whole social media, I don't understand what she means entirely, schedule a time with Krista. You can either email her at the email on there, or you can go to her page, which she has a way for you to schedule an appointment. That way you can have a chance to discuss your strategy or your business, and Krista can discuss or give you her strategy, which you can see if there's a good fit there. So, Krista, for our listeners, I wasn't going to say that. I should have said, tell our viewers how they can get a hold of you. So I'm a little backwards on that. So why don't you tell our viewers how they can get a hold of you?
Absolutely. Well, you can follow us on Instagram. We're at Miss Social Media. So on Instagram, there is no dash, or you can just send us an email, Krista at Miss-Social Media. If you're not watching this, it's Miss like Miss America, MISS social media.com. Or as Pete mentioned, you can go to the website. So we are excited to connect with you. If you follow us on social media, we are on Facebook too, but I primarily prefer Instagram. But if you follow us on social media, you'll get tons of free tips and tricks. And I'm a huge fan of hey, I'll tell you exactly how I do it. You only have to pay me money if you want me to do it for you. So follow us on social media if you want to DIY it first.
That is a great offer. So, as we wind down, what would be the one thing you would want our viewers to take home from our time on this podcast?
Your time is your money. If you are spending time on social media and it's not making money, you're wasting your time. So the quicker you realize that, the quicker you can do something about it. But don't waste your time. Don't waste your money. Be efficient with it. And my takeaway from this meeting, because I always love learning something too, is I am right there with you, Pete. Let's ditch the one-on-ones. Let's do podcasts. Create those digital assets. You're going to have the same conversation twice if you don't do it that way. So such a good point. So we're moving into the new era.
Yes, we all learn from everybody. I every single time I do a podcast, I had two this morning. They were rock stars, and I was like, "Holy mackerel!" And we wouldn't be able to do it if we did it in person because it's too difficult to in this town with traffic and all that.
Right.
So, all righty. Well, thank you, Krista. We appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to share with our viewers
Absolutely.
social media strategy. All right.
Always a pleasure.